and a few others in the area, breaking software. Chris is passionate about promoting standards for QA excellence and a deeper test effectiveness across all organizations. He's a lifetime learner and has enjoyed learning progressively about new technologies, techniques, approaches to testing, software delivery, and he encourages his teams to work together, which leads me into situational leadership and the meet, greet, and learn. Every team has its own methods, I'm sure most of you know. There's cultural challenges, and there's getting good software in the hands of customers is complicated. The art of situational leadership can be applied to any level to allow the test lead to impact his project in a positive way. Chris's presentation is going to take you through 5 key techniques that any tester, test lead, or manager can employ to assess needs, risks, and create positive changes throughout the organization. So if you'll welcome me bringing in Chris DeGonia. Chris?
Testing and software testing and things that we can do together to make what we do worth a little bit more where we're working at. Right? So thank you very much to Matthew and Raghu and Kalyan and Subindu and all of the team at Gallop. That's a great vision, and it's great to get out of the office for a Friday afternoon. So, all right. Now, before we get started, I'm going to do a group exercise. So, in order to make sure that everybody's prepared for the group exercise, I would like to see if everybody's arms are working in the room. Can everybody make sure that you can raise your right arm? Okay. Yes, we are ready for this group exercise. Thank you very much. All right. Now, I also have to see if this laptop is working. So give me a second. Okay, I think we're up and running. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Situational leadership. We know that situational leadership was coined by some folks in the 60s, and there's 4 paradigms of how to do situational leadership and all of that. I'm not really going to talk about that today. So, but I am going to talk about how to apply methods from situational leadership to some of the things that we want to do in testing. So, the way that I define situational leadership is the art of managing change by changing yourself first. A lot of times we want to make sure everybody else changes, but we really don't think about how can we change ourselves in order to change the organization that's around us. Right? And Winston Churchill, he said, to improve is to change, to be perfect is to change often. Right? Futterwhacking. Anybody know what futterwhacking is? Good. All right. So we have about 30 people here in the room. What I'd like you to do is, I think we're big enough, so we're going to count to 5. So you're going to be number 1, or 2,
3, 4, 5.
5. That's fine. First bug. Okay.
1,
2,
3,
4,
1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2,
3,
4, 5,
Can't leave you guys out.
2,
3,
In the back.
5, 5, 1.
All right. Now we're gonna break up into groups. So group 1, you're gonna be over here. Come on. This is an interactive presentation. We're gonna get a little bit of exercise here. Group 1 over there, Group 2, this appears to be a good spot. Group 3, back there with Nicole and Steve. All right, Group 4, that corner, and Group 5, you can be right in the middle.
Yeah, this is blind.
Okay. I also have to bring out the prizes because I realize that without prizes, nobody is going to participate. So, I have here in my hand piles of gold, otherwise known as dum-dums. All right? I also have a pile of Kit Kats and Reese's Pieces. All right, so the winners of our little group thing will get some prizes. All right, here's the deal. You just got a call, an urgent call from the project manager, and he told you that all of the words on the website were replaced. All the words that started with the letter F were replaced with the word Futterwagen. It's all over your website. Everybody, I mean, you get 1 million hits an hour on your website for your company, and everybody's seeing all the F words coming up with this. And so the developers, they've developed through the night. They came in, they're tired, they're living on some coffee for the last 12 hours, and they asked you, they want to do a release tonight, 4 hours from now. You have to figure out what the test approach and what you're going to test. That's all the information you have. All right? So what I want you to do is I want you to look at that, and I want you to answer 3 questions at the end, and I'll tell you what those questions are at the end. All right. So you have, I'll give you about till 4 o'clock. Is everybody ready? Good? I can see it. I can see everybody's excited about this group activity here. All right. You also need to pick one spokesperson out of your group to talk about the experience. All right. Anybody have any questions? No questions. Okay. I'm wasting time. All right. Have fun.
So we have 4 hours to test the entire site over Butterwalk. And to make sure that the placement doesn't
Just the website, no mobile app? Right. Web only.
Participation.
But probably the first thing I do is prioritize like what are the most important sections of the site so that they can read first and we hit those. Probably they try to pull it into the order to make sure that they can confirm that wherever we have research done and make sure it's replaced with an app. At least to make sure that the word Futterwalk doesn't exist anywhere in the code. That's probably how I approach it. Getting the software to function.
They accidentally broke something else though. Because just because they say they're only going to replace a Flutter track doesn't mean that they also tease or something. So kind of thing It should be
It should be there, should still be there. It wasn't a replace all.
So you kind of have to refresh to make sure that it's not just the photo walk that's got changed, but everything else is okay still. And that they didn't slip this when they didn't slip this.
So I mean, there's a list of questions we asked, but without those answers, we still make some assumptions. Right? And then, all right, so we don't have to answer the assumptions. Everything that starts with
not doing recordings, right? Not continuous.
We wanted short.
That's what Subindu wanted because it's too tough to transfer the files.
Okay, so I'll stop it.
and then see where the water level comes off, and then even now, get the things started out. I guess the other question is, okay, so this happened forever, is this gonna happen for other words? You know, so like, why don't you just test the original question? So we can test that they fixed all the See, you know, I was thinking they replaced it. Any other words?
First, we're gonna find all the occurrences of that word after the fix. We have to regression test somehow to make sure that everything the way it's supposed to, because how do we visualize it? It's supposed to be so there's just a way we can regression test.
Yes,
Then you gotta track go, like whatever sequence you're
Or that word.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So maybe step one is
Idea of crawling through the site. So I'm pretty sure. So what I wanted to do was, I wanted to break down the process of change in an organization into 5 steps. It is awesome, spoken by true test leads and testers in the crowd. And then we talked about some of the things from implement and measure, what kind of bugs do we think we're going to find? How many bugs do you think you're going to find? What do you think the root cause of this is? I've got to get my notes and my presentation to line up for some reason. It doesn't want to. So, assessment. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about today is when you are trying to change an organization, change does not come by accident. You cannot change an organization accidentally or in a reactive way. You must be intentional to change. If you're going to change an organization, you must have an understanding of what you want to change, how you want to change it, when, and where you're going to make the change. Okay? So that change may be, as a tester, I may want to see more coverage around some of the database stuff. All right? You need to assess, okay, what kind of test cases do we have out there right now that cover the database? All right, we don't have any. All right, I need to get my SQL server or my Toad for Oracle or whatever up and running and start working on some test cases around database. I may need to talk to the manager and say, is it okay if I spend 20% of my time focusing on these areas? But the point is that you're being intentional about what you want to do and how you want to do it. Okay. So in the assessment phase, the idea is little Stephen Covey / whatever the origin of the saying is. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. You have to listen during the assessment phase. So this has something to do with what I call the need and value paradigm. What is the need, and what can you personally commit to the value? So as a leader in your organization, you may have lots of teams that are doing lots of things, but what can you personally commit to make sure that the change happens? Without your personal commitment, the change will not happen the way you expect it. Right? How many times have we seen a 100-day plan come from a CEO, and he comes in and gives you the 100-day plan, expects it to be carried out, and then leaves for 3 months and comes back at the end of the 100 days, and nothing happened. Right? There needs to be a personal investment in making the change happen around you. Right? When you're assessing, you need to define things like what is the pain that's going on. You need to listen to everybody that's around you. It could be, the other testers on the team. It could be the product owners. It could be your customers. You need to use whatever tools are at your disposal in order to assess what is the pain that the organization is going through. A lot of times what I do, I'll go through and I'll look at all the incidents that were filed from our customers for the month. And I'll look through however many of those are, I'll look through every one of them and say, what do I have coming in? Is that above a true usability bug of a product? Do we have some performance issues? Do we have, whatever the issue is? And it helps me to describe what our pain that our customers are feeling. How do I help to impact that? Right? Some of you probably do the same thing. You need to define what the risks are and what type of mitigations. You need to think in terms of what can go wrong. The idea here is that you don't want, if you have a toothache and you need to go to the dentist, you don't want to root canal every single tooth, right? So don't overprescribe things for pain that you don't necessarily need. If it's a small problem and you need to fix that problem, don't come with a 10-page process book and try to figure out War and Peace before you can get to the end of the problem. Fix what is in front of you. Fix the pain that you're seeing. Don't come at it from an ideological perspective of what needs to be done. All right? So that's part of assessment. What are some of the methods and deliverables that we use when we are assessing things that need to change in an organization? All right? We did a little bit of this today. Brain mapping session. That was a lot of what you guys just went through. We were all brainstorming around. We have a problem. We want to fix it. The Mad Hatter just hacked us. We got Futterwucking everywhere. I almost messed that up. And I don't know what in the world I want to do with this mess that I've been handed. What do? We do some brain mapping sessions. The idea here, this is the most important part of making a change in the organization, is assessing what the change needs to be. It is very easy to jump over assessing what the pain is and moving to the rest, plan, get everybody organized, start the work, get it done, and not take the time to figure out where do you actually need to point the gun? Where is the target located at, right? So some of the methods are risk analysis. You can do a quantitative risk analysis. You can look at all of your incidents and tag them with risk and priority and business impact and dollar amount impact, and you can quantitatively say how much money this is going to cost your organization over the next 3 months. That's a simple idea, right? Or you can take everything in your backlog that if you're an agile shop and it's tied with business priority and with some type of impact or severity on there, right? You could score it. You can take all of the high ones and put them at the top of the backlog so you can know you're doing the most important stuff first, right? This is nothing new for folks that are doing agile or practice methodologies. What are some of the models that you can use? If you're trying to increase the maturity level of an organization, there's a ton of models out there. There's European models, there's the TMMI, there's the CMMI, right? How many has participated in one of these sessions where you say, we have arrived at level 5? Maybe level 4. Anybody been arrived at level 4? Okay, maybe level 3. Level 3, okay. Awesome. So what I'm trying to show you is that it's not about a model or about a state of arriving. It's a state of making changes within your organization. How do you make change as a person within your organization? It starts with being intentional. You will not stay in the same state that you're in, but also being in a place of listening to everybody that's around you. Okay? And being serious about what you're hearing. So we have different models out there. FEMA is a great model. Anybody participated in some FEMA? I'm totally messing that up. Failure, exception, and analysis sessions. Anybody? Okay, we have one person that has contributed. All right, so IEEE, which is the engineering standard, has a model called an FEMA. I would encourage you to go and Google it, figure out some tools that you can use. And what you can do is, you did a little bit of that today when I said, what kind of bugs do you think you're going to find? That was kind of a little bitty FEMA session there. You go through all of the failure points of an application, all the exceptions that it could produce, all of the modes of operations that it has, and you analyze all of those different things and categorize them into a little tool. And it helps you map out what types of test cases you need to do, or what type of requirements you need for the project, all of that. All right, is everybody still awake? Yeah. Good. There are some other things that you need to deploy when you're assessing changes that need to happen. Systemic thinking needs to be a huge part of what you're doing here. You cannot become myopic about how you employ the changes that you want to make. If you are looking at things with blinders on, and it's my job and nobody else's job, or that's not in my job description, or take your pick, or we've always done it that way and I just don't feel like changing. All right, if that's your mindset, then this probably isn't the right path for you to try and do. You probably should maybe help other people and support other people to change. But you need to kind of take the blinders off and start listening to everyone that's around you and understand what's going on. You have to have a systemic thinking in terms of the software. What are all the connection points? What are all of the system integrations with all of the other downstream and upstream applications? Are there mobile apps that are part of it? All of these different connection points. Systemic thinking is in terms of software. But you also need to analyze in terms of people and processes, systemic thinking. So for example, it may be as simple as having certain processes that conflict with one another. And maybe flipping the two processes backwards maybe help with that conflict, right? So you got to analyze the way things are happening. Also in terms of people, you need to think in terms of how do they need to interact with you. Some people are on your team, everybody's been in a meeting. And the person that's in the meeting, there's just one guy that just can't shut up. I'm sure nobody in this room has ever had that problem. And they just have to be the one that talks all the time. Okay, great. You've got somebody that likes to talk. Go grab some coffee with them and learn everything that you can. You know what I mean? Figure out ways that people interact with you and need to interact with you. That doesn't mean that you become the person that talks all the time in the meeting. It means you're listening to how other people are interacting with you and how can you change your perspective and your way that you deal with people so that it maximizes your ability to influence. Okay? So systemic thinking in terms of software, people, and processes. What's the style of approach here? What is the style of approach? There's 4 styles that's been defined in situational leadership. I'm really not a in the box, by the book, academic kind of guy, because I believe there's many, many styles that you can interact with people. It's not just one, limited to 4 styles. But those of you that have probably went through a situational leadership class, or you have your master's in this, I'm sure you've heard of 4 styles, and they are, let me read them so I don't forget all of them. They're directional, supportive,
Delegation.
Delegational and consultative, right? So if you look at a bell curve, the bell curve shows you being more of a dictatorial type of approach or more of a lay back and kind of listening kind of approach, right? So the best part of this, in assessment is never to prescribe what the outcome is going to be. It's very easy to get into an assessment of something, whether it's I'm assessing my team's processes and procedures to see where we can fix things, or assessing a test approach, or whatever. It's very easy to say and to prescribe based on your bias what needs to happen. All right? But that's not the way that you want to act in the assessment phase. You want to be the opposite of that. You want to listen. You want to understand. You want to hear what's going on in the organization so that you know what pain points need to be fixed, right? Okay. Assessment. Next is planning. Planning. This is planning. You want to make sure you do not leave a live dragon out of your calculations. If you live in. All right, that's a little Hobbit reference. Okay. If you're planning, you need to make sure you've answered all of the questions around planning. If it's test cases, if it's a project plan, if it's an organizational change, whatever it is, who is going to do the plan? Who are the people that's going to help you do it? If it's you, great. All of these questions you're going to be the one doing, right? But you still need to map out the answers to these questions. Who's going to do the change? What is the change going to be? When will the change happen? Is it something you plan to implement 6 months from now, 3 months from now, whatever, next year? Where is it going to happen? Maybe your plan for change is, I want a new job, right? This can apply to any type of change you want to make. How is it going to happen? Okay? This is the most crucial part of it. You're being intentional about how you want to make the change happen. Okay? And all of this is wrapped up in the statement, how can you help? Okay? How are you personally going to drive the change to your organization? Okay? What are some of the methods or deliverables that we can use? We have different test plans and approaches. We have milestones and resource plans. We have roadmaps. All of these artifacts can come out of the planning phase of change that you want to make. The most important part of planning and assessment is to say, what impact am I going to have and measure it? Okay? So for example, you think I can increase my ability to do test coverage by 20% if I bring in a great automation engineer. Right? That might be your hypothesis. Okay? Put that as a goal. Write it down somewhere. Put it document. Because later on, when you're measuring it, you're going to go back to the plan. The plan is not something you do one time, but it's something you continuously do throughout the process. A lot of times what we like to do is we like to put in a plan and then we never go back and revisit it. But the idea is to continuously revisit it and make sure, is this still the right thing to do? Am I still focused on what I need to do? And your style approach here is coaching. The reason why you're coaching other people and you're getting you're rolling up your sleeves, you're going to do it with the team. All right? The idea here is to bring as many people along for the ride as you can. Most changes, significant changes, cannot happen on their own. You will not do it by yourself. You have to do it with other people. So that's why if we get them involved at the very beginning in the planning phase, now you have people that you can take along for the ride. Right? That's a big part of it. Okay, organize. Yeah. Go this way. Anybody feel like they're a cat herder sometimes?
Take the can opener out of the drawer. You have them.
All right. So organize. This is what it is. You're herding cats. All right. The point is that as you're organizing, it comes as a as just an extension of the planning that you did. If you did poor planning, your organization is going to be the same poor. Okay? If you didn't think of all the things that could go wrong and plan for the mitigation around those things, then the organization around them is also going to have the same kind of outcome. The other part of it too, we get these huge plans, right? When I came into SOS, I drew up a TMMI concept. I had this 75-point improvement plan that I wanted to implement into the organization over the next 9 months and blah, 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 right? If I didn't take and actually organize the work around each part of that plan, it's great to have a plan, nothing's going to happen. All right? So your organization has to meet the need of the plan that you want to enact. All right? When I organized, we organized generally around people, processes, or tools. Right? Some of you have seen this nice triangle before, I'm sure. But the idea here is you don't want to be the one man that's running the show. Okay? Your ideas should never come from your own self in order to get things done. You want to generate ideas by everybody else on the team participating. Because I guarantee you, we had 5 different ways of approaching this testing thing called Flutter Wagon. Right? We had 5 different ways of doing it. And they were all great ideas, all based on everybody's experience in the room. All right? So you want to be able to manage down as much as possible if you're a leader. If you're a tester, you want to be empowered to do the job yourself. You don't want to have the dependencies upon all of the other things, right? So the idea here is self-directed teams, which is a key principle in Agile, right? You have to empower the doers of the job. Don't set up 15 layers of management in order to get done, right? Cut out the bureaucracy, get the person that's going to do the job to talk about what he's doing, get the measurements to come from the ground up, right? Not from somebody going through the process and manually going through 12 million reports and finally taking 3 days and finally I got my quality report ready. I don't know how many people have been in that process in this way. But the idea here is that all of the work that can be done at the point that the work is being done, all of the measurements that need to happen at the point the work is being done, that happens as the work is happening. So that at the end of the process, you have, as an outgrowth of the work that's actually being done, you have everything at your disposal to measure and to quantify the outputs, right? Okay. Implement. Okay. I can tell there's need for dum-dums in the audience. Does anybody like a dum-dum? All right, here you go. Go ahead. You can pass them around. Anybody else want a dum-dum? No, okay. All right. Implement. This is another part. Basically, the 2 things I want you to take out of this session is be intentional about the change that you want to make. Don't be reactive. Okay? If I want my organization to be at a level 5 TMI in the next 18 months, I'm going to be intentional about it. I'm going to have a plan around it. Right? The other part of it is to create a standard of excellence, wherever you're at. If you're in your job and other people, and you see things that could be done better, do it better. Be the standard of excellence that you need to be, right? So, the examples here, stay focused on the plan. Don't plan to the work that's involved, but stay focused to the plan that you've made, right? So, everybody's been here, we've been testing, and all of a sudden somebody walks to our desk, and now I got this whole other set of problems that I got to deal with, and what am I going to do about it? And I just got sidetracked for like 10 days because I got to do some other thing, right? How do you stay on track with the plan? What are you going to do with the plan? Am I going to reformulate all the time frames involved? Am I going to just put in extra hours and try to get it done? What am I going to do? Don't let the plan just sit there and not do anything. You have to keep revisiting it. Keep and stay focused to what you want to change. All right? Styles of approach here, coaching and delegating. If I'm a lead, I want to make sure I'm following up, right? Allowing the people to do what they need to do without getting in the way, right? I also need to drive sideways. And what I mean by this is you never want to get stuck in a silo in the way that you do work. You always want to reach out to other people that are around you. So the product managers, they're a great example of this. Your customer online help, or your customer service folks, or your customers in some cases, they're great touch points for a testing team to get to know. If you don't have a relationship with the people that are actually doing the business, then as a tester, how do you know what business needs to be done, right? They may have a completely different problem than you think you're solving. Okay? So you need to always be broadcasting what's going on in your group out to the other people that are involved with your organization. So you want to drive sideways. All right? Measure. When everything that you plan to do, if it has a bullet point on your plan, it needs to have a measurement around it. Okay? If it's important enough for you to plan to do it, it's important enough to measure what got done. All right? And you need to plan, how do I measure the outcomes? So at every stage, right? And I like to think of it in terms of, from a consultant background, you're assessing an organization, things that need to change and things like that. But also as you're going through changes in your organization, you want to look at every step of the way and say, how do I know that I've arrived at the step that I did? How do I know that I've done something meaningful, right? So for example, more test case coverage around databases, or better software engineers doing our testing, or more test coverage around automation, or whatever, right? You want to measure the outcomes and have a predefined way of saying you've arrived, okay? Don't leave it to chance. If you leave it to chance, you don't define it up front, then you're not going to get a lot out of it. Okay? You're not going to be able to go back and see if you've done it. So measure actually covers all of the different areas of the cycle. Okay, you can have measurements coming out of the quantitative risk assessment. You can have measurements that say what the plan is going to be like and all the milestones along the way, right? You can have a measurement of the way that you organize. Are you the most efficient that you can be, right? And you can be measuring the implementation of the changes you want to make, right? You want to quantify the results. At the end of the process, so you're done with your change, you implemented what you thought it was, and all of a sudden I've got a golden goose that lays golden eggs. That's what I hope to get, all right? Well, you got to look and see, did the golden goose actually lay golden eggs, or was it somebody that just painted the eggs gold? So quantify it, and you need to listen to the results. Was the plan completed? What was the result of the plan? All right. What was the impact to your business? Did you have a dollar amount that you impacted the business with the plan that you put into place? Right. Did it actually happen? Did it accomplish what I thought it was going to be in the beginning? And then obviously your retrospective, right? I don't know if anybody been a part of a retrospective here before. Okay, good. Most people's arms are working. That's awesome. So what you got to think in terms of when you're done making the change, what went well? What would you do differently? Right? And answer those questions. Don't just have yourself answer them, have other people answer them. Okay? And this is the trick to it. Listen to what they say. So if somebody said, you know what, I had to work 50 hours or 60 hours last week just to get this done, and this was just really too difficult to get done, we didn't get what we wanted to out of it. Okay, don't do it again. Figure out a better way to do it. You know what I mean? Work smarter, not harder, right? And then the last thing that you want to say through the process is, what was your personal contribution? What was your personal effect on the team and on other people around you? And be able to enunciate what those changes were that you personally made to the team, right? What you're going to find is that maybe you contributed a whole lot, or maybe you didn't contribute as much as you thought you could have through the process, all right? And you can learn from that, all right? Another thing that's very important when you're measuring, make sure that every person that's a part of the effort gets recognized, right? So everybody knows, to give credit where credit is due, right? But a lot of people forget that, the dev team had to stay up really late to get that change done and into testing. And we forget that there's a lot of other people that play a part in what we want to do, right? Okay. Evaluate the plan at each step. Publicize the measurements early and often. Okay? As soon as you're starting to implement, have a roadmap. Have things that are ready so that you can start publicizing where we're at. We're in day about 45 of our most recent transition plan right now. And you know what? Day 45 yesterday, I just had a meeting with one of the executive teams. Boom, had a story ready to go with the measurements that came out of some of that, right? To say, where are we at? How are we trending? Where are we going? Right? So be ready and prepared at each step of the way what you are measuring to see what your results are, okay? Allow the measurements to inform the outcome, okay? If you think you're going to get X amount of profitability out of X amount of investment, and you want 18% and you're only getting 3, don't let that go for 6 months. You got to change something, right? So some of your styles, coaching, again, you're rolling up your sleeves, you're with the team, you're in the details, you're in the weeds as much as you can be without getting in the way. That's always the trick. And you want to stick to the actual facts that are going on. Allow the data to tell you what needs to happen, all right? So if you have a preconception that you can execute 50 manual tests a day, you're like, I can get 50 tests done today. And you only got done for 25. Okay, maybe you had, or maybe you got 5 done that day. Maybe you had a down day. Okay, the next day I come at it. I can get 50 tests done a day. After you've done that for about 2 or 3 weeks, guess what? There's a trend line here. You can measure. Maybe you can't do 50 a day. Maybe you can only do 30. And the next time you go to estimate what the next project's going to be, don't go to them and say, I can get this done in 3 days, and you know it's going to take you 5. Right? So measure the outcome and allow the measurements to inform you of how to move forward. Right? And the third part of it, that this is really important, sunk costs do not mean a sunken ship. Right? If you've invested a lot of time and effort into something and it's just not getting the fruit of what you thought was going to be, go back to planning. Go back to assessment. Don't just keep going after the same thing, even though you don't a failed effort. Right? Don't be afraid to step back. A lot of people get afraid because they're like, well, I'll look bad, or I won't get the credit that I thought I needed, or whatever. None of that matters. What matters is your personal ability to make an impact on the organization and the value that you bring to everybody around you. Right? So if you need to step back and regroup, do that. Take some time to assess. You may be in your office or at your desk by yourself doing the assessment, and maybe you're a little afraid of what the outcomes are, but take some time and really reflect on what's going on. Think about it. Right? Don't just mindlessly go through things. Be intentional about how you want to make the changes in the organization. The last thing is, don't give lip service. Okay? If somebody comes and tells you that something really needs to change, and you say, yep, I definitely agree that needs to change, don't let that be the last thing that you do. Right? Be the person that goes and helps them make that change. Right? So measure. And you delegate, and you allow the teams to be empowered, or other people to be empowered to make the change. And they either are successful, or they may even fail. But you're allowing them the opportunity to succeed, right? And the other part of it is to coach and to help people to be the best that they can. All right? But you're never at a place where, if you're always coming down on people and being dictatorial in the way that you do things, you know, your team's not going to appreciate that very much, right? So, all right. So those are the 5 phases and some of the styles that I thought would be appropriate. You guys have been great. Let me go to the last slide. Okay. So I want to thank everybody for listening in. I think that I've covered all my time that I can. So does anybody have any questions, any thoughts? What I really loved hearing was all of you guys' approaches and how you approach these problems that even though you really didn't know what the problem was, how did you approach it? And everybody has something to give to the organization. Everybody can be intentional about what they want to do, and they can do the change with excellence. Any questions? Any thoughts? Go for it.
So I have a question, just kind of something that I wanted to say with this, is how do you attack like people's burnout? Especially when you have something that you have releases that are every, 2 weeks, and it's like everybody's at pressure point to just get to the production, the final release. Like how do you attack that?
Just one thing to add to that, communicate.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I've been in that situation, and ultimately what ended up happening